Knowledge for Men, episode 22.
Welcome to knowledgeformen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download today at kfmbook.com. There's over 100,000 titles to choose from for your smartphone, tablet, or computer. It's a perfect way to listen to your favorite books in the car, in the gym, or at home. Check out kfmbook.com to start learning in your downtime.
All right, guys, I'm here with Todd Valentine, an instructor for Real Social Dynamics, a company specializing in dating, relationships, personal growth, and self-actualization. Todd has coached thousands of men across the world in the last 10 years, focusing on health and building strong relationships with women. Todd, it's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Let's go ahead and jumpstart right into your favorite success quote and why.
Well, this quote actually comes from Michael Jordan. I have a lot of my inspiration in life and inspiration towards success in general comes from the world of athletics. And so it's actually the title of one of his books, which is I Can't Accept Not Trying. The full quote being, I can accept failing, but I can't accept not trying, which I think is a good metaphor for my life and what has allowed me to have the success I have had with women and in life in general.
I like that. Continue, keep going, persistence, hard work, it pays off. You have to try. You'll never know what could have been if you just don't try. And now, Todd, share with the audience your story and how you got involved with Real Social Dynamics.
Okay, so for me, I was sort of a late bloomer with girls, mostly I think because I was way too much of a perfectionist in life. I was good academically. I was good at athletics, mostly because with the parents I had no choice but to be good. They kind of made me practice, made me work hard. But girls was one area that there's just no focus placed on my life. And the older I got and the longer I hadn't had success, the more I felt like I really was behind in that area. And the more I didn't want to try because I felt like I'd just try and fail, or I felt like I would try and not succeed. I felt like I was generally poor in that area. And a big part of my identity and my ego came from being good at things because I had been good academically. I had been good at sports. And so I just kind of stopped trying to a point. I just stopped really pushing. And in fact, a lot of times through middle school and through high school, I would have girls ask me out who I was actually interested in, and I would actually say no to them because I was afraid of the next step. I was afraid of them finding out that I wasn't a good boyfriend. Because like saying no to the girl and blowing it off, that's over quickly. It's a limited amount of pain. But if you actually go out with them and then get found out as not knowing what you're doing, then if they tell people, then it's obvious you've never had a girlfriend before. It's obvious you don't know what you're doing. And there's no question about that. So out of fear, I basically avoided the experience for a really long time. And in fact, the experience more than anything else that got me in the game was one of those experiences, which I'll keep it sort of long story short on it because it can get very long if I go into detail. But essentially, there was a girl. I transferred from public school to private school for high school. And so I got to start over fresh socially. And I walked in with, I thought, being kind of the man because I was one of two kids on scholarship in my school. And I was the only freshman on our varsity soccer team, which was our big sport. So I walked in and I thought I was like Mr. Big Man on campus. All of a sudden, I thought I could go from being like the nerdy, dorky kid to all of a sudden just like stepping it up. But about, I think like the second or third day of school, I met this girl who it turned out was like the it girl for our school. And we started flirting in the back of history class and it was going really well to the point where everybody noticed. And a couple of like the popular kids came up to me after class and were like, dude, when are you going to ask her out? But at this moment, I was absolutely terrified because I looked at it logically in my head. And I thought to myself, if she says no to me, that's going to look really lame. And if she says yes to me, then I'm in this situation of I've never had a girlfriend before. Obviously, she's probably had boyfriends before. Everybody will find me out and I won't be cool anymore. And so I tried to play it off as though I wasn't interested. I was like, oh, yeah, no, she's not really my type. And then I had the biggest crush of my entire life on this girl for basically 2 years. I tried to do impressive things near her to get her attention. I was thinking about her all the time. If you'd asked me like hottest girl on the planet, like popular celebrity girl or her, I would have taken her. It was really ridiculous. And at the end of 2 years of us being friends, doing lots of things together and being very close, but me never making a move, eventually she moved away with her family. And finally, at the very end of it, at her going away party, I finally, because she could no longer ruin my life by saying yes or no to me, I finally asked in the weakest possible way. I was like, was there ever a time when you would have gone out with me if I'd asked? Which is like a really fucked up question to ask, actually. It's like not even nice to ask. But she essentially like looked at me, went totally silent, actually got a tear in her eye, and she was like, yeah, why didn't you? And it was like really actually heartbroken. And the fact of the matter was, from the beginning, for probably most of our relationship, if I had asked her out, she probably would have said yes to me. So I had to deal with it at that point, the fact that for 2 years, this thing that I had in my mind as what I wanted more than anything in life, it was just sitting there for me. And for 2 years, I didn't take action and didn't even find out about it. Now, the fact of the matter is I was so bad with girls at that point, I probably would have been on like one date with her and ruined it. But even so, to have missed out on that, I really, really hurt. And that's when I made a very critical decision in my life, which was that if I ever had regrets in my life, I wanted to regret things that I had done rather than things that I had not done. Because we have a limited time here on this earth, and there are things, if you do something and fail, at least you know. But if you don't do something and fail, you're going to go and always wonder why. So, and also what I've learned since is almost any error, almost any failure that you have in your life, it's usually not as bad as you think. It usually won't take you down to zero, and you can usually recover and try again pretty quickly. Whereas the things you don't do, there's no recovery for that. So that was one of the biggest learning lessons in my life. And then from there, I started trying to teach myself to be good with girls. And it's been kind of a mission and a quest ever since, even before there was a lot of material out there, before there was like a pickup community. I would look for everything. I would look up. I know my dad had some old books from the 1970s that I happened to find in his library that gave me some very ineffective advice, but at least it encouraged me to get out there and start talking to girls. And when the early pickup community sprung up on the internet, I got a lot of bad advice from that as well. But again, it was at least encouraging to me, at least motivated me to try. So then I was self-taught for about 3 years, going out, just opening and trying to get phone numbers and trying to follow up.
Okay, so what did that process look like for you when you were first starting out? Like, what was your routine like? What was your schedule like? And yeah, share with the audience how you got started.
So I started when I was 18 years old. So I couldn't go to clubs yet. And I basically was just on a college campus, and I would try and approach any girl I could. However, there were a lot of limiting beliefs there. I didn't believe that I could approach a group of girls. So what I would do is I'd essentially wait for a girl to split off from her group. I'd wait for like sort of a gazelle. And then like I'd try and like swoop in and get a phone number really fast before her friends noticed what was happening and before it got awkward. And usually they were like 2 minute, 3 minute numbers, super flaky. And I'd call and I had terrible phone game, but I would just persist and persist and persist with my terrible phone game until either she'd tell me to stop calling or her like boyfriend would pick up the phone or whatever. So it was just like really like not great game, but just incredible persistence. And I'm trying to make it work. And then I'd get to the date and I'd be terrible on the date, mostly because I wouldn't escalate on the date. Like I'd sit there on these dates with these girls and I'd have lunch with them for 2 hours and never even give them a compliment, never even show that I liked them at all, never even like touch them in any way, shape, or form. And then I had to force myself to like get up the nerve to like reach over and touch her hand with my hand, that kind of thing. So it was just like literally from absolute square one in terms of nervousness and fear of failure.
I think so many guys can relate with that, and you've come a long way. So what did it for you, Todd? When did you have your major aha moment when you realized that, you can become better with women? It's not something you either have or don't have. It's a skill that you can work on like anything else in life.
I think there were probably a few. The first one was sort of by accident. It didn't even have to do with game, but it was when I went on my college visits to various college campuses, and I had to figure out what school I wanted to go to. And my choices were walk around campus with my mom, which I was not really into as an 18-year-old boy, or go on like the guided tour that they give you where they point out landmarks. And I didn't think my college experience would have to do with like buildings, or I could just get dropped on campus and just talk to people about the school. And what I realized was once I was there, I could talk to anyone, because I had a really good premise to ask a question. It's just as easy to ask a hot girl, hey, what do you think about the school? I'm thinking about being a prospective student here, as it is to ask some fat guy. And it's much more rewarding, because then when they take you under their wing and show you around, you're getting shown around and introduced to other hot girls. But so what I realized is that hot girls are not that unapproachable. Number one, they're not like mean, evil people, and that they will talk to you, and it's not that hard to start a conversation. So that was a big one. And it was big not only in the sense as a revelation, but in the sense that it developed a habit. Because once I got to college, my experience of a university was walking around talking to the cute girls on campus. So when I got there, it just seemed natural for me to keep doing it. And that's why I started doing approaches on my campus, even though I did them poorly and they were just conversational, not a lot of intent. At least I was talking to the hottest girls on a regular basis. So that was a big aha. Other big ahas would be just trying to kiss the first girl that I ever tried to kiss, and the fact that she ended up sleeping with me was a huge one as well. I'm realizing how simple that transition was. It was the most awkward kiss ever. My first kiss was the most awkward kiss ever. Like literally, it was a date, and I knew that I had to kiss the girl because I'd been on so many dates without kissing her. In general, this is my first date with her. But so she walked out. I was thinking, gotta kiss her, gotta kiss her, gotta kiss her, gotta kiss her. She actually like got in her car, and I had to literally knock on the car door, have her open the car, and then like tell her, hey, come on, I want to tell you something real fast, pull her out, and then kiss her. Because finally I'd gotten to that pain threshold where it just hurt so much not to be kissing these girls that I did the super awkward thing to make it happen. And I think that's a big, I don't know if it's an aha moment, but an aha lesson in game is, number one, the importance of sort of just having the experience that gets you to that pain threshold so that you have motivation on yourself. And then number two, the idea of making it awkward in the moment as opposed to making it awkward in the long term. There's so many moments in interaction with a girl or interaction with any person where you can do something to make it super awkward right then and there. Like, for example, you're on a date with a girl, you're across the table from her, and you can't touch her. You can get up and say and do the weird thing and go sit next to her, which is super awkward to do, but it's going to ensure that for the next hour you have an opportunity for the date to go well, as opposed to an opportunity for the date to go nowhere, right? So taking the awkwardness in that moment as opposed to taking the awkwardness over the long haul is another really, really big lesson. And it was an aha for me, how okay it is to be awkward and how much it makes a difference in your set in general to be willing to take that on your shoulders, because girls won't escalate for you. You have to take it on your shoulders and you have to be awkward. Game is never going to be smooth. It's always going to be clunky and awkward and a pain in the ass and just a mess. So just deal with that and accept the awkwardness. So that was a big aha moment that came out of that as well.
All right. And how long were you going out solo, going out on your own before you got involved with Real Social Dynamics?
So I did that very poorly for the better part of a year. And then I started to get slightly better at it. And I actually got to the point where I could consistently get second dates. I got to the point where I finally learned how to kiss a girl, which was more in my head than anything else. I actually had probably a dozen different experiences where the girl was basically begging me to kiss her and I didn't. And I walked away and I just felt like a total loser afterwards. And then eventually the first girl I kissed I actually ended up sleeping with, which shows how much I needed her to be into me to actually kiss her. I needed her basically to be ready to sleep with me before I would kiss her. But so I was starting to get a little bit of success before I got involved with Real Social Dynamics. But then I took a program of theirs up in Montreal, and that really jump-started everything that I was doing, because up until then, everything that I was doing it happened by accident. I kind of went in, hoped it would happen, hoped it would go in a direction. And I learned certain lines that I'd used before worked, or a certain technique I'd used before worked, but I didn't have an overall structure to what I was doing. And so I didn't know how to go from point A to B to C in a reliable way. I kind of just threw out haphazard things that had worked before. So from RSD, I learned a structure. And also I got in touch with Tyler and Papa, who are running the show there, and stayed in contact with them for the next several months, which led to me eventually interning with them and then eventually becoming a coach for them. So that was obviously pretty life-changing for me.
Nice. And what were some of those strategies, or what was that structure that RSD taught you?
Yeah. So back then it was I think 2002. So it was a very canned sort of structured sort of game that I learned at first. To be fair, it was actually RSD and Mystery were running the boot camp together. So there was still kind of one company working together at that point. And so what I learned was that there is sort of a structure to attraction. There are certain things that you can do to get attraction, as in, obviously I was aware of sort of negs and flirtation from reading online. But I learned sort of how to throw them into a conversation, how to carry the conversation forward when you're not specifically flirting, i.e. there's a concept that I still use in my game today called plotline, which is that you want to make the interaction with the girl and you an experience for her. You want to make it, you want to have some sort of story to what's going on. So it's like you and her against the world. And it can be, she's your new girlfriend and you're exploring this, or it can be your long lost lovers and you're playing a joke on her friends, or it can be a number of different things. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that structured, but there has to be some sort of experience that you're having with her so that you don't have to keep her in this heightened sort of giggly state of mind all the time. There's some meaning underneath it that keeps her there even when you're not always being on, that you're not always being super fun and funny. Because I'm not the most fun, funny guy. I'm a natural introvert. And so I like to do a lot more through developing some sort of connection and commitment with a girl, and through having good physicality, than through trying to be fun and funny and like be a clown all the time. I say clown in a negative way. I don't even mean it that way. I almost wish I could be a clown. Like, I wish I was capable of being more of a clown. But because I'm not, because I'm just an ordinary guy, I need to structure my interactions in that way, so that there's a story and there's an understanding. It also makes it much easier for the girl to explain to her friends what's going on and to justify doing things with you, which, as you get better and better at game, becomes the biggest obstacle. It's not so much about whether you get the girl that you're talking to like you, because usually she will like you, but it's about dealing with her friends, dealing with her societal expectations, figuring out ways that it's okay for her to actually spend time with you. So it really, really helps in terms of that aspect of game as well. So yeah, that was it. And then the other thing was the idea of value and comfort, which is a model I still use in my game to this day, understanding that there is the distinction between the two. I think those old school models of value and comfort were a little flawed, because it was like value first, then comfort second. Whereas I think it should be more, there's some of both all the time, but you want to like be more flirtatious and more fun and funny at the start, and then more sort of comforting later, but you never drop the flirtation. You never drop being that fun, cool guy that stimulates her emotionally. That always needs to be present. So that was a major failing of that model. But that said, the model was still amazing for me. And especially coming in with no idea of what I'm doing, it gave me a lot to work with. And another thing it did is it motivated me to practice a lot of new things and try a lot of things I never would have tried otherwise.
I like seeing the evolution of Todd from being scared of asking out girls to becoming very successful with women now. It seems like you've got this area of your life under control. And Todd, how has your game evolved from when you first started in 2002 to where you are now in 2014? What defines your style of game?
Okay, so I would say that what I've sort of learned more than anything else in game, well, actually, let me go back. Let me say kind of what I'm good at in life and then apply that to game. All right. The lessons that I learned in life that have really helped me is, number one, I'm really, really good at learning things. Like, I wouldn't say like at one discrete skill in life I'm the absolute best, but I'm really good at getting to a pretty competent level at skills pretty quickly by either reading or studying or learning. And then I'm good at combining skills. So that's a big hallmark of my game, is I wouldn't say I'm the most charismatic person, or I'm the person that brings the most drama into the girl's life, or that I get the girl chasing the absolute hardest, or I'm the best with logistics. But I've learned enough from enough different sources and been able to compile them that I don't have a huge weakness in my game. And I think that's what gets you success. One of the big things I always say is that there's a difference between being good and being effective. And so good is where you really trigger a girl's emotions really highly, or you get these girls like, you run these sets that someone looks at them, their jaw just drops like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. But effective to me is when you do get a girl attracted to you, making sure that that girl actually gives you a phone number, actually comes home with you, actually sleeps with you. Because like I said, it's not that hard to get girls attracted once you get good at this. But what really makes you better at game, in my opinion, is when you do get a girl attracted, how much what percentage of those girls do you actually get to become your girlfriend, right? And so that's what I really focus on. And so the funny thing about game is that there are a lot of things that you can do that look good or work pretty well to a point. Like, for example, like hardcore nags or hardcore crazy peacocking. They work really well to a point, and I really like them to that point because they get a big reaction. But the problem is, if you do too much of that stuff, afterwards when the girl goes back to her own subjective reality of the world, she thinks to herself, like, that guy in like the crazy outfit, he was fun, but is that really the type of guy I want to be my boyfriend? And it violates her reality so much that it's hard for her to justify. So in a certain sense, you'd be better off getting less attraction, but getting that attraction in a way that's more sustainable and that you don't have to keep being crazy to maintain. So that's a big part of it, is that I've learned a style of game where I can game at low energy. If you were to watch my interactions with girls, and Tyler actually comments on this whenever I present at his hot seat, whenever I show my infield video, it always looks like the girls are talking 3 times as much as I am. And so he comes in, he's like, okay, guys, does this look like Todd's hot seat or does it look like the girl's hot seat? Just like I'm sitting there and she's like talking at me and gaming me, and then I'm just throwing in little things, or I'm just like even just looking at her approvingly or disapprovingly, and just the non-verbal content is enough to keep the set going, because essentially I've structured it in the right way, and then I don't make mistakes, right? So that's the big thing, is you don't make mistakes. And if you look at game, wherever your weakest area is, that's going to determine the results you get. So if you're really good in person, and you get phone numbers and you're terrible on the phone, say you have like 10 out of 10 in-person game and like 6 out of 10 phone game, well, you're going to get a girl who's like a 6 out of 10 because you get her to the phone, but then all those girls that you did so well in person, they're going to, you're going to drop the ball on the phone. Whereas if you had 8 out of 10 in-person game and 8 out of 10 phone game, now you're going to get an 8. So it's really important to take care of those weak links in the process, which isn't to say you shouldn't focus on your strengths, but there are certain links that you just have to go through, and you have to make sure all of them are at least competent. So that's a big thing. And I've learned from all the different styles. I would say every major style of game, I've done it effectively at some point. From classic super structured styles to even hypnosis styles, and now to like the more natural style, like self-amusing RSD game that we teach these days. I've done all the different styles, and there's a time and a place for all of them. There is a time and a place, even if you're doing a natural style game, if there's a really difficult set logistically, there's a time and a place to do something really structured because you have to almost become a performer just to get like the girl's attention, right? So knowing that, it gives you a much wider scope of what situations you can master, what situations you can win in, for lack of a better term. So yeah, so I would say in short, my game is low energy. My game is getting commitment from the girl and letting her contribute a lot to the interaction and chase. And then my game is also having a lot of different tools that I can throw in if and when I need them. And it's extremely technical. Like I don't need state to game for the most part. I can get in state, and when I do, it's a thing to behold. But for the most part, even if I'm out of state, because I have a technical competence, I can game well enough, which is something I really like having too.
And by state, you mean the mood that you're in, whether that's being in a positive, uplifting social mood or being out of state, which is maybe you've been working all day, you're tired, you just kind of want to keep to yourself, you're kind of in your own zone, and that's out of state. Yet through experience, you've been able to develop a solid, well-rounded style of game that is unique to your own personality, which is going to be key. Like you said, you tried all different types of styles out there. There's so much content available, but really developing your own style that works best for you is going to lead to the best results. So Todd, I know that it hasn't been an easy journey. Nonetheless, you've been doing this for quite some time now. Can you take us back to a time on your journey when you've encountered a challenge or failure and how you overcame that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pickup. The story of pickup always is going to be the story of challenges. I would say one of the biggest ones I've had recently was like phone and text game was a huge challenge for me. When I first learned game in 2002, 2003, girls actually picked up their phones, at least sometimes. And so I learned phone game pretty well, but then I took a break from the game for about 4 years and became a professional poker player. And during that time, I wasn't going out a lot. And then when I came back to gaming like full time, I realized my text game was really terrible. So I'd have these interactions with these really amazing, cute girls who would follow up with me. They'd send me like 4 texts right after the interaction. And then I'd send them like 1 text message and they'd never talk to me again. It was literally that bad. So I realized this is something I needed to learn. And so what I did is I undertook as systematically as possible to actually learn it. And my process, I won't get into all the like how to text stuff because that's a really lengthy conversation. But the process by which I learned, I think, is more important because I think the game is a process to a certain extent. It doesn't even matter what style you do. It doesn't matter what techniques you learn. But if you get the right process, you will get good. So my process was to get as many phone numbers as I could to practice, and essentially to treat it from almost like an internet marketing perspective of like spamming and testing every headline and like split testing this and that and the other. So I would get numbers from everybody. I would even get, whether that's cool or not, I don't know. So I got all the numbers I could, and I would just practice and split test and try everything. And whenever I had a message that I thought would be good, I would send it first to the girls that were practice only. And if it worked well there, then I would send it to the next, like the girls that were more flaky. And then if it worked well there, I'd send it to the girls that like were more on. So I was able to practice while still getting results, which I think is really important because you don't want to be disheartened in the game. If you get a string of really, really bad results, that can really get to you, I think, no matter how emotionally strong you are. So you want to structure your practice in such a way that you're getting some periodic success along the way. And actually, a side note on this, if you're like a super newbie and you're practicing, you want to practice in such a way that you can find little milestones of success where you don't need to sleep with a girl to consider a success. Because otherwise you'd be very frustrated and you're going to feel like you're not getting anywhere. But if you take the little waypoints in the conversation, or, I got her to talk for 5 minutes as a success, or I got a phone number as a success, and don't work on the whole thing, you can give yourself that encouragement along the way to keep you going, which is really important. Because I see so many guys get into game and then fall off. There's a certain, I think the average time period someone spends in game, if they become the member of the pickup community, so to speak, is something between like 6 and 18 months. And I'm very interested in keeping guys in it longer than that so they can actually really get great at it. And a big part of that is getting that encouragement along the way. So side note. But in any case, so I started getting numbers from everybody and following up on them very hard. I also started doing online game because I figured what's the best way to learn a textual communication with no context? And also what's the best way to have like 1 million people you can spam at any given time around the world for practice? So I did that, and I essentially taught myself a form of text game that's very, very effective, and it works for my personal style. It's a little bit logical. It's a little bit hard-headed. It's a little bit like I send longer text than most guys that are good at texting, but it works for me. It gives me very good results. And now when I do get the 10s into me, they actually follow up and come out on dates with me. But it took me probably a good 3 or 4 months to get really good at it and to get so that the text game wasn't the bottleneck in my game. And actually probably still it is a little bit, but to the point where it's at least tolerable for me. And then obviously I'm always improving. But the other big thing in the process of learning game that you want to do is be willing to unlearn or be willing to become worse in order to get better. I equate this to like a maze. Say you like those little mazes you have as a kid where you start at one corner and you go to the opposite corner and you get all the way over there, you're right next to it and you reach a dead end. Well, you can get attached to the fact that you're right next to that corner you're trying to get to, but if you do that, you'll never actually get there. What you have to do is backtrack, figure out where you went wrong and go backwards, get worse for a while, get further away from your goal in order to get closer for a while. Because a lot of times there's something that because game's so rich and varied, because there's value, comfort, social conditioning, logistics, all these different things. It could be you're doing something that's getting you massive value, but it's hurting you logistically. And you need to unlearn that in order to figure out the logistics part of it. And it's actually hurting you, even though it seems like it's helping you. So be willing to question everything and be willing to try everything is a big lesson also in the learning process.
Oh man, we definitely have to get you back on the show, Todd. We'll have to do an entire episode on how to text more effectively and master phone game. What really stood out to me was how you overcame that challenge, was understanding that you need to be willing to unlearn what you learned or what you already know and accept that you're going to fail or get worse before things start to get better. It's really part of the learning process and path to mastery at any skill. And of course, I'm going to ask you, since this is what you're so good at, what are the best attitudes and mindsets to have when approaching women that you're interested in?
Well, the first one I would have is, this isn't actually my own unique idea. It comes from Alexander, who's one of our other coaches in RSD. But his view is there's no reason you're not enough, which I really, really like. And a big statement he makes about that, he says, it's not like you say, oh, I'm enough as like some victory, some like trophy. I am enough. I am enough. No, it's just there's no reason you're not enough. It's not some arrogant thing. It's just saying, look, I'm a good guy. I offer things to a girl. I bring things to the table. She'd be better off with me in her life than without. She slept with guys similar to me before, probably most likely. And so there's nothing holding me back, right? There's nothing getting in the way. Just getting out of your own way is a huge, huge thing. The other one that I have is assume the burden of the conversation. You have to be, because I'm a natural introvert. And so I prefer to stay at home and read a book. I prefer to have a one-on-one conversation instead of a group conversation. But over essentially 13 years in game, I've taught myself to be good at doing a group conversation, to be good at the other conversation. But it's an effort for me. I have to decide for myself that when I approach, it's kind of weird in Zen. I expect a good response, but I don't demand a good response for it to work. Does that make sense? I do expect them to immediately open up and smile at me, but I'm also willing to accept the fact that they don't know me, they don't owe me anything, and they're probably shocked and don't have anything to say either. So it is my job, no matter how cool I am, no matter if I think I'm like higher value than them or I shouldn't have to work, it's my job in the first couple of minutes to show that to them and to prove that that's actually the case. It's not just going to happen because I showed up like, hey, I'm Todd. Now you can bend over and like pull your pants down for me. It doesn't work like that. I have to actually do all the things that made me deserve it in the first place. And actually some of the worst nights I've ever had are the nights when I forget that because what does Jeff say? Tim, a former instructor, used to say game is woo plus intent, meaning having fun plus like showing that you're a man. Or Jeff's phrase for that is he calls it party dong. Meaning like you have to bring the party and have a dong. If you're all party, you're just like their gay best friend. If you're all dong, then you're creepy. But if you're party dong, you're good. But so a lot of times for me, I personally, because I'm an introvert, is I forget the party part of it. And I have to remind myself that they don't owe me anything and that it's on me to be fun and funny and interesting and just keep talking no matter what. Most of the time, the conversation, here's one last lesson which relates to it. This is actually from Julian, who's another RSD instructor. But it's be loud, have fun, keep talking no matter what. Or Julian's phrasing is censor what you say after you say it rather than before. So instead of thinking and trying to think, what is the best thing for me to say to the girl? How do I make her like me? Instead, just say whatever you feel like. And then if it's good, go with it. And if it's bad, go, oh, so sorry, just kidding. And then change it. Because that's when you're going to be naturally fluid and good. And you have that sort of like half second after you say it before she reacts where you can always change it. And in fact, if anything, it's going to make you more shocking and interesting. So it's not even going to hurt you. So censor what you say after instead of before. Lower your standards for what comes out of your mouth. So those are the biggest things I'm thinking. You're enough. Lower your standards and assume the burden.
And what I like about the term I am enough is that it enforces the concept that it really doesn't matter what you say. It matters how you say it. It's that frame, it's that confidence, it's that angle, that position that it's coming from. And ultimately, that is what can prevent a guy from getting the girl he wants, not knowing what to say or when he sees the girl, or not even approaching the girl because he feels like he's not worthy of her. And no, that's BS. You are enough for that girl. So, Todd, there's so much more that we can learn from you, and we want to pick your brain even further. So, Todd, let's dive deeper and go into the biggest lessons you've learned with women in dating in the last 10 years as a dating coach.
Some of the biggest things that have really shocked me is what I will see students do when they're doing things wrong, and how well they can do even when they're doing things really, really badly or really, really poorly, as long as it comes from the right attitude and the right mindset. So a lot of times I'll get students on program who don't have a good technical understanding of game. They don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, but they just have an attitude where they'll try anything. And also a beautiful thing about a boot camp, number one, I'll say that I think our coaching is really good and I think we give a lot of good advice. But even if we didn't give any good advice, the structure of a boot camp really helps people because number one, it forces them to go approach. And number two, because we're an authority to them, whatever they do, even if they do something completely horrendous, if they think we told them to do it, they'll do it with a lot of confidence and belief. And a lot of times that confidence and belief in and of itself can make even the bad technique work. And so it's really, really shocking to me. Sometimes I'll send students in to go approach like a really difficult set, and I'm thinking it'll just be a practice set for them or whatever. But if they go in with total belief, even if they do something completely socially awkward and horrendous, a lot of times the girls will react really positively to it. And it's a great reminder for me because even to this day, I have certain limiting beliefs, right? Even to this day, there are times when I'll look at a difficult set. And in fact, in some ways, because I know technical game, I have limiting beliefs, right? Because I know about how difficult logistics can be, because I've seen a lot of situations where I've big groups with guys in them have not worked. I'll have that limiting belief. But the student doesn't have that limiting belief because when you're an instructor, he thinks you're God. And if you tell him to go approach, he thinks it's doable and he thinks it can be done. And because he thinks it can be done, he'll do it. And I'll look at it like, wow, I can't believe you just did that. I don't know if I could have done that because of the limiting belief in my head. It's sort of like the power of attitude and coming from the right place over technique has been a huge, huge revelation for me over the past several years. And now, obviously, because I have technique, once I get that good reaction, I'm going to actually pull the girl, whereas the student probably just going to get a good reaction and then it's going to peter out. But even just seeing that is truly, truly inspirational. And seeing the rapidity, how quickly people can get good at game these days is really, really inspiring as well. Like it took me years because I didn't have a lot of guidance and I didn't have, specific technique or a methodology for doing it. But a lot of times I'll see guys, like I'll have guys come into boot camp as virgins and get laid on program, which is pretty shocking to me. Or like virgins who have never even done a cold approach. And like on day 2 of program, they're taking a hot girl home. I like to think I'm a good coach, but I can't take full credit for that. You know what I mean? Like something happened outside of my control for them to get that good that fast. But yeah, it's just pretty inspiring what can happen when you have full buy-in and when you really don't get in your own way. Getting out of your own way is a big part of the game because I think we all instinctively through eons of evolution kind of know what to do when we're put in the right situation. And I mean, great example of that too is you take the nerdiest, dorkiest guy who's not a good speaker and you make him the leader of a group of similar guys. All of a sudden he'll become charismatic, he'll step up, he'll lead, he'll stop stuttering because you've imbued him with that role. So a lot of game I think is putting yourself in the right role in your own head, taking on the right mentalities. And from there a lot works. I know we used to teach like body language. Like we'd give a bunch of rules of here's what not to do body language wise. And when we would teach that way, everybody would do every single thing wrong. We'd be like, don't do all these things. And they'd go out and do all of them because they got so nervous trying not to do them. And now when we just say, don't even worry about body language, just get the right attitude. Now all of a sudden they go out and their body language is amazing. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that and a lot to be said for just the power of the human mind when the belief is right.
Todd, the first thing that comes to my mind after just hearing that is the quote by Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And really just take a moment to think about that. Because anything in life is really going to be up to whether or not you believe in yourself. If you don't believe you can get that girl, it's not going to happen. This is guaranteed. You're not going to stumble your way into an amazing relationship. You need to believe that you can get that girl, or you can apply that into business. If you want to build a business and you believe in yourself and in your business, that is going to help you. If you don't believe in yourself or you don't believe in the business, I don't think that business is going to be successful. And so, Todd, you bring up a great point. Bringing up with some of your students who don't believe in themselves because you told them and they go do it, and that shocks you. So it just shows the power of belief and how powerful that really is. And moving along, Todd, we got to jump into the knowledge round. Are you ready, Todd?
Sure.
For you, the listeners of the Knowledge for Men podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their awesome service. And you know what? Something I've noticed after interviewing hundreds of successful people is that they all read a ton of books. If you want to be successful, you've got to educate yourself. I don't always have time to sit down and read a book, so I personally recommend listening to audiobooks in your car, in the gym, or on the go. You can pick up for free any one of my favorite best-selling books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins, Mastery by Robert Greene, Choose Yourself by James Altucher, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, or any other audiobook you want. Audible has over 100,000 titles to choose from. To download your free audiobook today, go to kfmbook.com. Again, that's kfmbook.com for your free audiobook today. Start learning, growing, and becoming the man you want to become now. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
Todd, how would you explain approaching women and dating to a newcomer?
Okay, so in order for a girl to like a guy, he's going to need to be kind of a cool enough person. And that has to do with a lot of other aspects of your life and how you're conveying yourself. But there are two things that most guys don't do, which is one, get themselves on the girl's radar, like put themselves in front of the girl so she notices. And then number two, they don't come at it from the right perspectives that help her find him out in the best light. And so I'd say cold approach in dating is really a process of number one, being a cool, interesting guy. Number two, putting yourself out there so the girl sees it. And then number three, just avoiding the bad frames and putting yourself in the good frames, like avoiding the frame of she's too much for me or I'm not good enough and I have to chase her. And instead flipping it around to, look, we're two people, we like each other. I think Alex uses the metaphor of like a corporate merger, right? There's two companies just evaluating each other and seeing if they're good together, not like one's better than the other and one needs to prove itself to the other. So I'd say it's putting yourself in the best light as quickly as possible so she can find out how cool you really are.
And if you had to explain it briefly, what is the path to mastery in this area?
Okay, so the path to mastery, number one, it's going to take a lot of approaches. There is no way to get good at it without doing a lot of approaches. Number two, try as early as possible in your learning curve to get a good example of what good looks like so that you have it in your head and you have an idea what you're aspiring to, what you're reaching for. We have like little plug, but RSD, like hot seat program where we show infield video would be a good example, or just get a mentor who's really good, who you can see what's possible. And then the other thing is, as you practice, you want to be specifically working on different things. You don't want to practice the same bad habits over and over again. So the process is figure out what your sticking point is, and then try something that's related to it for part of the night. For like the first half of the night, go practice, and the second half of the night, go have fun. Similar to how you do in a sport, you practice a drill, and then you go play the game. Practice a drill, go play the game. So have a bit of structure, but remember that game is supposed to be a fun experience, and that you need to give yourself little bits of success along the way as well. So try and make sure that the challenges you face are tailored to be hard enough to challenge you, but easy enough that you can fulfill them. So that's the game plan I would give to get good, to get to mastery very quickly.
Very concise. And Todd, what was personally holding you back from becoming successful with women and in your own personal life?
The biggest thing was failure to fail and failure to escalate. Those are the big ones. I never took any risks. I played this like cool, successful James Bond guy who never made a mistake, never did anything wrong. And it doesn't work that way. First of all, game is sloppy and messy and you're always going to do things wrong. But even if game was perfect, you have to fail to learn how to be perfect. You have to learn. You have to fail in order to learn. You can't learn from inaction. So the biggest thing for me was I needed to take action. And then obviously finding mentors was really, really huge for me as well. I was very, very lucky with finding RSD the way I did and having them kind of take me under their wing.
Getting a mentor is going to be key, just like in any other skill, but getting a mentor is going to be key. And I think what's happening in this industry is there's so much content available in the dating, approaching women niche that there's just so much, and people are consuming it at such a high level, and they're not taking action, and they're not getting the desired results. What do you have to say to the guys who are in this position where they're just consuming so much content and they don't have a mentor like you did?
Yeah, I'll say that the most difficult students I've ever gotten in my career are the ones who have read every bit of information ever and never done a cold approach. Those are literally the toughest students to work with because they just get this analysis paralysis where they just overthink every single thing. You don't want to be doing that. You want to, I don't know what the rule of thumb, I've heard like 3 nights out for 1 night reading, something like that. Probably should even be more than that. But the point is, in general, in concept, you want to be spending your time in the field more than anything else. You need the reference experience, and you need to realize that a lot of learning game is an emotional experience and not just a technical one, right? If you have all the techniques right, but you're too emotionally reactive, or when a girl gives you a shit test, you crumble because you've never felt that before, all the technique in the world is not going to help you. Whereas if you're emotionally right and she gives you a shit test and you don't have the right response, but you just don't care because if you've been through it so many times, you're numb to it, you'll do much better. So realize that even if you were to learn everything, that isn't good game, right? You need the experience even aside from perfect technique. So yeah, definitely lots and lots of field time.
And Todd, what's the best advice you've ever received from a mentor?
Actually, the best advice I ever got from a mentor wasn't even directly about game, but it relates to game. It was about my public speaking because I've always been a perfectionist. And so the first few times I was asked to give a speech, I was really afraid to do it, even though I was being massively compensated, because I didn't think it would be the absolute best speech I could give. And I wanted to prepare it and get it oh so good and make sure that it was a speech that was on the level of how I felt I was as a human being, like it defined me as a human being because it's my work being put out there. And there's something Tyler from Real Social Dynamics told me. He said, look, I know that you don't want to do this because you don't think it's like Todd quality or you don't think it's like the best speech you could ever put out there. But what you need to realize is that for the students, as long as they're learning from it, they're going to derive value and they're going to love you for it. They're not going to care if you say and too many times. They're not going to care if it's not perfectly structured. Just get out there and offer value. Number one, realize you're still doing enough. And number two, realize it's the only way you're going to learn. And it's the same thing for a set, which is when you go in, don't think that you have to have the perfect line, the perfect routine, the perfect anything. Just realize that you as a man are still offering value and it's good enough. And the very idea that you want to be perfect, the very fact that you aspire that way as a man is the exact reason why you're the type of person where if you go in and say anything, it will be enough. So just trust that your innate you-ness is enough without feeling like you have to be perfect all the time. So I'd say that's really great advice in life for any endeavor, but specifically for game and with girls.
And Todd, I know that you read a lot, but what are your 3 most influential books and why?
Okay, so most influential books, like specifically game related, would be...
Or just in life, whatever.
I'll give you a couple lists real fast. Influence by Cialdini. Making People Talk by Barry Farber, which is like an old book from the 1970s, which actually got me started and got me at least being conversant. And then The Hustler by Walter Tevis, which is a fictional book about a guy who learns to hustle pool and more importantly learns how to take being excellent at a skill towards being a winner at a skill. Excellence into success. So those are game related. Other just great general books. I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand. Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged would be big ones. As an RSD person, I have to recommend Eckhart Tolle. Getting into like being in the moment. Yeah. Power of Now is good. I actually didn't like A New Earth. I thought it was a little too woo-woo for me, but I thought Power of Now was one of the most amazing books I've ever read. So I give him massive credit on that one. I guess that's 5 books, so that should be it, I guess.
Yeah, 5 books, that's plenty. And Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is so powerful. It's such a great book. And just heads up, guys, you can pick up a free book at kfmbook.com with Audible. You can get a free download with the link kfmbook.com. Check it out. And Todd, what's one action one person can take right now that would get them closer towards their goals?
I would say try and have a clear idea of what you really want. I think a lot of people have a vague idea of what success is. They have the sort of like, I'd like to make good money. I'd like to live a good lifestyle. I'd like to have girls in my life, but there's no specifics to it. And when there's no specifics to it, it's really hard to achieve. But if you specifically know, and you might even achieve it the wrong way. Like if your goal is to make a lot of money, you may just go and maybe get a high paying job when your real goal is to have money so that you have freedom, in which case you maybe need to run a business or go about it a different way. So I'd say begin with the end in mind. And even if so set concrete goals. And even if your goals are wrong, even if your goals are not what you want in the long run, having them moving in that direction is a start, and you can adjust them as you go. But you wouldn't start out for a journey without a map and without knowing where you're going. Don't start out in your life the same way either.
All right, Todd, scenario time. Imagine you woke up and you were 20 years old. You got $1,000. You know everything you know now. What would you do? Would you do anything differently?
So I'd do two things. Well, if I knew everything I know now, I'd probably go play poker with that $1,000, run up a bankroll, and and do some other things. But
so you would definitely be in Vegas. Nothing would change there.
Yeah, but no. If I on a more conceptual level, if I knew what I knew now, I would do two things, because I think that in life you want to do two things. You want to, number one, make sure that you don't fall backwards, and then number two, you want to strive. So the first thing I'd go do is I'd go get some whatever menial job I can and support myself and make sure that I'm not falling into the gutter. That's step one. Step one is make sure you don't go backwards. Step two, what I would do is I would work to find someone who I really respect and who I really love what they're doing with their life. And I would do anything and everything to get someone like them to take me in, mentor them, and teach me what they're doing. But I say you need the foundation first, and then strive. So that's exactly what I would do. And it could be in any area. I mean, like I'm big into finance. I ran an investment fund for a little while. So maybe I'd find someone in finance. Maybe I'd find, if I was into athletics, find an athlete, find a coach, whatever it is you're into, but find someone who you truly admire and that you'd like to learn what they're learning, and do it. And if that person isn't everything you want to be in life, you can always get another one later, but learn everything you can from them first and then go onwards.
And as we're coming to a close here, Todd, what is your philosophy on life?
I would say try and make it beautiful. Try and make it something you're proud of. And I'll give you another sort of quote that I use in Pickup, which is stop trying to make it work. Start trying to make it epic. Realize that the things you're going to remember when you're 80 years old are not, did you succeed in this set or that other set? It's going to be, did you have the amazing experience, that new life-changing event? Did you exceed your expectations and do something better than you ever have before? So yeah, try and make it something you're beautiful, that you find beautiful, and try and make it something that you're truly proud of. Live your life in that way. And number one, you probably will succeed massively by doing it. But even if you don't, you'll know absolutely that you didn't go to the grave with your music still inside you.
Make it beautiful. I can do that. I think that's something everyone can kind of reflect back on, and I like that. And Todd, do you have any last parting piece of guidance for the audience while you have all the thousands of listeners today?
The biggest thing I would say in Pickup, in life in general, that I can give to you, which I know most of you won't follow because I know people, but it is what it is take action. Take strong action. It's very easy to sit around and listen to theory. It's very easy to have listening to a program like this be that interesting experience that kind of opened your eyes and made you say wow and kind of like brightened your day for a little bit. But it's harder to convert that into going out and taking action and making it a catalyst for really moving your whole life forward, really making a big change. And I encourage you to take just one little step in that direction. If you're a guy who hasn't done a cold approach, go do a cold approach today. Go walk up to one girl and let her know that you like her. Just do one. That's all I would even ask, right? If you're a guy who does do cold approach, then maybe do something that challenges you. Go talk to like some girl that's with a guy if you don't do that, or make sure that you're always asking for a phone number next time you go out, something like that. But do something, take one small concrete action to push yourself. You'd be amazed how much you can get done in 10 years with a small concrete action. You'd be shocked how little you can do by trying to push yourself to do everything all at once. But action is paramount. Don't make this just a theory thing. Make it an action thing in Pickup or in life.
All right. Ended with such a nice bang there. And Todd, what's exciting you today? What are you currently working on?
One of the big things I'm working on now is I'm shooting infield footage. So we actually sneak cameras into clubs and film ourselves, and it's a great learning experience. First of all, seeing your good sets and bad sets up close and personal, and having to like have them hammered into your head. But I'm actually launching my hot seat program, which is me doing infield video and breaking it down like a coach would for an athletic team. So that's pretty exciting for me. Another thing that's really big that I'm doing is doing the immersion program in Vegas, which is I have basically 10 guys living with me right now, learning pickup, being around me all the time, going out with me, having me to wing. I'm breaking down videos for them, their videos, my videos, teaching them on an ongoing basis. And it's great. It's amazing for them. We've had some great success stories, but it's also amazing for me personally. I've learned so much from it, because I've learned from them as people, but also being put in this role of having to be a mentor 24/7, having people constantly looking to you for guidance and as their resource for how to be the type of man they want to be. It's a lot of pressure, but I like the pressure. It forces me to be a better person. I feel like in the last 5 months that I've been doing it, I've maybe grown more rapidly than I ever was before. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I think, number one, it's a great program, but also it's just been amazing for me as a person as well.
It sounds like the Vegas immersion program going on that you're leading is Project Hollywood reinvented.
Yeah, it's a similar concept. It's definitely a similar concept with more of a teaching structure, but very similar.
Yeah, not as crazy, not as wild, or more focus.
Well, it gets pretty wild, but yeah,
okay.
It is Vegas after all.
So Todd, where do you see yourself in the future? What's your vision?
For myself, I want to get into, as well as the pickup, get into more and more sort of general like self-help, motivation, human growth, that kind of stuff for my students, for my clients, and also for myself. I mean, I'm a 31-year-old man now. I'm getting up there. I want to get my life handled. I'm finally at a point where, fortunately, I don't specifically have to worry about money. So that's really nice. But I want to get it to a point where I can do that while also working the selected times I want to, where I can work on the projects that most interest me instead of doing more of the menial grunt work type stuff. So now it's about maintaining and growing what I've built, which I'm pretty proud of, but while enhancing my experience of it and spending more and more of my time on the things that really motivate me. And also adding more learning. I want to do more of like getting coaches for various things that I wanted to be good at and filling in sort of the gaps in my life. I'm also exploring a lot of things in terms of relationships and structures and that kind of stuff. The learning and the growth, as well as hopefully magnifying the financial so that I can even exponentially increase the learning and the growth.
Yeah, Todd, I admire how you're so focused on personal growth as a key driver for overall success in life. And that's seen throughout this entire episode, the books you read and what you're currently working on and where you see yourself in the future. And Todd, go ahead and give yourself a plug so all the listeners can get in contact with you.
Yeah, the best things to check out for me would be for RSD in general, check out rsdnation.com, rsdnation.com. For me personally, my own videos do youtube.com/RSD Todd. And then if you wanted to contact me by email or whatever, it's just todd@realsocialdynamics.com. So those are the general best ways to get in touch. I really, really recommend the videos, especially my YouTube videos and RSD Nation videos. A great learning experience myself and 6 other coaches. We put them out every single day. It's our best, newest ideas, basically for free to you over and over and over again. So what I always tell people about that is if you're trying to tell me that you're trying to get good at pickup and you're not exploring the free videos that we put out, you're an idiot. Like, I don't believe you that you're trying to get good. Because like I said, the price is right and they're good quality. So check them out and you won't be disappointed.
All right. And for all the listeners, check out RSD Todd on YouTube, and you can see he has a ton of videos on there. And yeah, be sure to check those out. And the hot seat, I'll put the link into the show notes. And yeah, Todd, it's been so awesome having you be a part of the show. You've really given us a unique perspective, not only on dating and women, but also on life. And I think a lot of the listeners can agree with that. You have definitely rocked this episode. I'd be more than happy to have you on the show again. Until next time, Todd.
Sounds good. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, that's going to wrap up episode 22 with Todd Valentine. And heads up, guys, I got a few emails from listeners, and they were really surprised when I responded within a few hours. So I want to throw that out to all of you. I'm a real person. My email is andrew@knowledgeformen.com. And if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, the Knowledge for Men show, I especially want to hear from you. I love to chat. I appreciate your guys' time. I really do. I mean, I think we're on to something here. I think there's just so much momentum going. It's just unbelievable what's happening here. And what's happening in February and in March, I don't want to tell you guys, but I've got some amazing guests. And I think you're going to be in for quite a surprise when you see some of these names pop up. There's just going to be a ton of great knowledge, inspiring stories that are just I know they're just going to rock your socks. I don't even say that term ever, but I felt it was appropriate for that time. So I know you don't want to miss any of those episodes. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. I can assure you that I have a ton of great content coming out and you don't want to miss it. So get that subscribe on. If you have any feedback, go ahead and leave a review. I appreciate any reviews that you guys leave. I always read them. So stay tuned, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.